The Metropolitan Museum's grand ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers. 400 guests in black tie and couture gowns mingling beneath vaulted ceilings that had witnessed a century of New York's elite. Champagne flutes caught the light like scattered diamonds. A string quartet played Vivaldi near the entrance, the music swallowing into the hum of wealth and influence, exchanging pleasantries that meant business, charity that meant networking, smiles that cost nothing and promised everything. Outside, snow began to fall. A black Maybach pulled to the curb, idling as the driver circled to open the rear door. The man who emerged moved with a kind of quiet confidence that made heads turn without understanding why. Tom Ford tuxedo, $8,000 of Italian wool draped perfectly across broad shoulders. Patek Philippe Nautilus on his wrist, 500,000 in platinum and sapphire, catching streetlight as he adjusted his cuffs. Dark hair swept back, silver threading the temples, blue eyes that had learned to measure a room before entering it. The cameras waiting at the entrance caught him in their crosshairs. Flashes erupted. Someone shouted a name. He paused on the red carpet, just long enough for the photographers to capture what they needed, then moved through the doors into the warmth and noise of Manhattan's charitable elite. The ballroom swallowed him. Whispers rippled outward from his entrance like stones thrown into still water. A woman in emeralds leaned toward her companion, phone already in her hand. "Is that Tristan Ashford?" "Can't be. He hasn't been to one of these in years." "Google him." The phone screen glowed. Forbes article loading. Net worth, $2.8 billion. Founder, Ashford Analytics. Sold to Google 5 years ago. Reclusive since. He's here. Across the ballroom, standing near the bar with a glass of white wine she hadn't touched, Evangeline Bellamy felt the shift in the room's energy before she understood what caused it. She'd been uncomfortable from the moment she arrived. Borrowed black dress that fit well enough, but screamed Target to anyone who knew fabric. Hair pulled back in a simple twist because she didn't own the kind of jewelry that justified letting it down. The other nurses from Manhattan General had scattered to network, to enjoy the open bar, to pretend for one night they belonged in rooms like this. Eva stayed near the wall, observing, waiting for an acceptable amount of time to pass before she could leave without seeming ungrateful. Then the crowd parted and she saw him. Her breath caught, wine glass trembling in her fingers. "No, not here, not like this." The voiceover that had opened the evening whispered again in her memory. "Tonight, 400 people will learn the truth. About the man they once dismissed. About the billionaire they never recognized. And about the only woman who ever saw him for who he really was." 20 months earlier, the voice had promised. Christmas Eve. And now the flashback pulled her under like a riptide. The snow fell heavy over Connecticut that evening, turning the cemetery into something out of a Currier and Ives print. Tristan Ashford stood at his wife's grave with his hands in his pockets and his breath fogging the December air, watching snowflakes settle on the marble headstone. Rachel Elizabeth Ashford, beloved wife and mother. The dates beneath made him 41 now, alone for 3 years, still coming to this place on holidays because some part of him couldn't stop. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Rachel Stone said nothing back. It never did. But he stood there anyway, snow gathering in his dark hair, expensive coat doing nothing against the cold that lived in his chest, and tried to remember what her voice sounded like when she laughed. The memory kept slipping away like smoke. The phone rang. He pulled it out with numb fingers, saw Mrs. Whitmore's name on the screen, and answered before the first ring finished. "Mr. Ashford, I wouldn't call if it wasn't urgent." Her voice carried the tight control of someone fighting panic. Patricia Whitmore had raised 4 children of her own, worked as a nanny for 15 years, never rattled. Hearing fear in her tone made his stomach drop. "What happened?" Eliza's fever spiked to 104. "She was fine at dinner, just said she felt tired. I put her to bed early. But 20 minutes ago she started shaking, and now she won't wake up properly. She's delirious, Mr. Ashford. Asking for her mother. The snow kept falling. Rachel's headstone blurred. Have you called an ambulance? The pediatrician said not to wait. Said I should get her to Manhattan General immediately. I've got her bundled in the car, but I thought you'd want to know. I'm 90 minutes away. Take her now. I'll meet you there. He was already moving, feet crunching through fresh snow toward the parking lot where his Mercedes sat alone under a street lamp. The cemetery disappeared behind him. Rachel's grave vanished into white silence. The drive back to Manhattan carved itself into his memory in fragments. Black ice hiding under postcard-perfect snowfall. The turnpike stretched ahead like a tunnel, headlights reflecting off falling flakes that turned the world into static. His hands gripped the wheel at 10 and 2, knuckles white beneath leather gloves. And somewhere in the back of his mind, the old terror resurfaced. The one that lived there since Rachel's diagnosis. Cancer had taken her slowly, piece by piece, month by month, until there was nothing left but 11-year-old Eliza's confused questions about why Mommy wouldn't wake up. He'd promised himself then, promised Rachel's ghost, that he'd keep their daughter safe, that nothing would ever hurt her again. The fever felt like a broken promise. He made the drive in 73 minutes, breaking every speed limit, taking risks he'd fire any employee for taking. The Mercedes fishtailed twice. He didn't slow down. The world narrowed to a single purpose: reach his daughter before the universe could take her too. Manhattan General sat on the edge of the financial district, a hulking building that looked more fortress than hospital. He double-parked outside the emergency entrance, hazards flashing, and ran through automatic doors into a blast of fluorescent light and antiseptic smell that triggered every memory of Rachel's final months. The waiting room overflowed with holiday casualties. A man holding a towel to his head, blood seeping through. A child crying with an arm bent wrong. An elderly woman coughing into a mask, each breath rattling. Tristan pushed past them all, his voice loud and desperate, calling for help. Mrs. Whitmore appeared from the chaos, Eliza wrapped in blankets in her arms, the little girl's face flushed and slack, eyes unfocused. He took his daughter, felt the heat radiating through layers of fabric, and the world tilted. A nurse materialized beside them. I've got her. The voice cut through his panic like a blade, calm and certain. He looked up and saw her for the first time. Navy scrubs with cartoon penguins across the chest. Dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Brown eyes that scanned Eliza's flushed face, took in the shallow breathing, and made decisions in seconds. She reached for Eliza without waiting for permission. Tristan's arms tightened instinctively, but something in the nurse's steady gaze made him let go. She's going to be okay, Mr. Ashford. Tristan Ashford. Mr. Ashford, I've got her. Come with me. He followed her through a maze of curtained partitions into an examination bay. The nurse laid Eliza on the bed with a gentleness that made his throat tight, then turned to grab supplies, movements practiced but never rushed. She spoke to Eliza in a soft tone, explaining what she was doing, checking temperature, listening to lungs, examining throat. And somehow, impossibly, Eliza stopped whimpering. The nurse hummed something under her breath. It took Tristan a moment to recognize the melody. Silent night. Quiet, almost absent-minded, but Eliza's eyes focused on the sound. The little girl's hand reached out. The nurse took it without breaking rhythm, continuing the song while she worked. Tristan stood frozen by the door, watching this stranger calm his daughter in ways he hadn't been able to manage for 3 years. The ache in his chest shifted from terror to something else, something he didn't have a name for. A doctor arrived, young and overworked but kind, confirming what the nurse had already suspected. Severe influenza complicated by dehydration. Eliza needed IV fluids, anti-fever medication, observation overnight. The words washed over Tristan in waves of relief and residual fear. Not cancer, not meningitis, not the 1,000 worst-case scenarios that had played through his mind during the drive. Just the flu. which any parent knew could still be terrifying for a child. He must have swayed on his feet because suddenly the nurse was there, one hand steadying his elbow, guiding him to the chair beside Eliza's bed. Her touch was brief, professional, but it grounded him, brought him back to his body. She'll need to stay overnight for monitoring. The IV will take a few hours to finish, and we'll keep checking her vitals. But she's stable now. The worst has passed. Tristan nodded, unable to form words. He sank into the chair and took Eliza's small hand, the one not connected to the IV line. His daughter's eyes were closed now, breathing, evening out as the medication began to work. She looked so small against the white hospital sheets, so fragile. The nurse busied herself with adjusting the IV drip, making notes on a tablet, checking monitors. Tristan watched her move, noticed details he'd been too panicked to see before. Younger than he'd first thought, mid-30s maybe, with an economy of movement that spoke of someone who'd done this work for years. No wedding ring, he noted, then felt ashamed for noting it. Her scrubs had small cartoon penguins on them, the kind designed to make pediatric patients smile. There was tiredness around her eyes that suggested she'd been working this shift for too many hours already. She caught him looking and offered a small professional smile. I'll be checking on her every hour through the night. My shift doesn't end until 7, so I'll be here the whole time. You can rest if you need to. His voice came out rougher than intended. I'm not leaving. I'll stay all night. Something flickered across the nurse's face. Understanding, maybe. Recognition of the particular fear that drove a parent to refuse sleep. I thought you might say that. She gestured to the chair. I'll bring you a blanket and some coffee in a bit. Hospital coffee is terrible, but it's hot. Thank you. The words felt inadequate for what she'd done, for the calm she'd brought to the chaos. I'm Tristan Ashford. The nurse's smile softened slightly. Eva Bellamy. She glanced at Eliza's chart, then back at him. Your daughter's lucky to have a dad who drops everything on Christmas Eve. Tristan's laugh came out bitter. I was at a cemetery visiting my wife's grave when the nanny called. I should have been home hours ago. I should have. Eva's voice cut through his spiral with quiet firmness. You're here now. That's what matters. She paused, something shifting in her expression. I know what it's like to be scared for your child. I'm a single mom too. My son Declan is 6. The information landed between them, unexpected and personal. Tristan's exhausted brain latched onto the puzzle pieces. Single mom working night shifts on Christmas Eve. No wedding ring. A 6-year-old son presumably spending the holiday without his mother. He wanted to ask more, wanted to understand the circumstances that would lead someone to be here instead of home with family. But Eva had already turned back to her work, adjusting Eliza's blankets one more time, checking the monitors with expert efficiency. I'll be back in an hour. Try to rest, Mr. Ashford. Tristan. His voice caught her at the edge of the partition. Just Tristan. Eva looked back, and for a moment, something passed between them. An understanding, maybe, of what it meant to be alone on a night meant for family. Then she nodded and disappeared into the fluorescent chaos of the ER. Tristan sat in the uncomfortable chair, holding his daughter's hand, and let himself breathe for the first time in an hour. The fear began to recede, replaced by the dull throb of exhaustion and the odd, unsettling awareness that he couldn't stop thinking about the nurse who'd hummed Christmas carols while saving his daughter's life. The hours passed in that strange, suspended reality unique to hospital nights. Time measured not in minutes, but in the rhythm of monitors, the soft beeping that marked Eliza's heartbeat, the occasional rustle of curtains as staff moved through the ER. Tristan sat motionless, his body present, but his mind caught in loops of guilt and relief that every parent knows. He'd been at Rachel's grave, talking to a stone marker, while his daughter's fever spiked toward dangerous territory. At midnight, Eva returned as promised. She moved through the examination bay like a dancer who knew every step by heart, checking Eliza's vitals with quick competence before making notes on the tablet. The little girl slept soundly now, medication and fluids doing their work, color returning to her cheeks. Eva smiled down at her, genuine warmth transforming her professional mask into something softer. She brought coffee as threatened, 2 cups from the vending machine, both steaming, both probably terrible. Eva handed one to Tristan without comment, then settled on the stool by the monitors to update charts. Tristan wrapped his hands around the styrofoam cup, grateful for the heat, if not the taste. You didn't have to, but thank you. Eva shrugged, eyes still on her tablet. It's a long night for both of us. She glanced up. How are you holding up? The question shouldn't have undone him, but something about the gentleness of it, the genuine concern in her voice, made Tristan's carefully maintained composure crack. I lost my wife 3 years ago. Cancer. Watching Eliza sick like this, He stopped, surprised at himself for saying it out loud. Sorry, you don't need to hear that. Eva set down the tablet, her full attention shifting to him. The compassion in her eyes wasn't pity, it was something deeper, something earned. I'm sorry. That must have been terrifying, seeing Eliza so sick tonight. Tristan nodded, not trusting his voice. They sat in the quiet, punctuated only by the monitor's steady beeping. And somehow the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people who understood loss, who knew the weight of being solely responsible for a child's well-being. Eva spoke into the stillness, her voice soft. Declan's father left when he was 2. Just walked out one day and never came back. She looked down at her coffee, turning the cup in her hands. So I get it. The fear that something will happen and you'll be alone with all the decisions, all the weight. It's exhausting. Tristan studied her face, noting the shadows under her eyes, the exhaustion that went deeper than one long shift. How do you manage it? The single parenting and working nights? A small, sad smile played at the corner of Eva's mouth. Barely. Declan stays with a neighbor when I'm working. Mrs. Sullivan is a saint. She's probably reading him the night before Christmas right now. She paused. I miss more holidays than I'm there for. It's the price of this job. But you love it. Tristan said it as a statement, not question. He could see it in the way she'd moved through the ER, the tenderness she'd shown Eliza, the calm authority that came from genuine dedication. Eva's smile turned genuine. I do. There's something about being there when people are at their most vulnerable, their most scared. Being able to help, it matters, even when the coffee is terrible and you miss Christmas Eve with your kid. Tristan found himself smiling back. The first real smile since Mrs. Whitmore's phone call. For what it's worth, you made tonight a lot less terrifying. Eliza responded to you in ways she hasn't with anyone since. He stopped again, the comparison to Rachel unfinished but understood. Eva's expression softened. She's a beautiful little girl, strong too. You can see it in her eyes. She stood, checking her watch. I should finish my rounds, but I'll be back in another hour. Get some rest if you can, Tristan. She disappeared through the curtain before he could thank her again, leaving behind the faint scent of antiseptic and coffee and something else. Something that felt dangerously like hope. At 2 in the morning, Eliza stirred. Her eyes opened, confused and fever bright, searching the unfamiliar room until they landed on Tristan. Daddy. Her voice was small, frightened. Where are we? Tristan moved to the edge of the bed, smoothing her tangled hair. We're at the hospital, sweetheart. You had a really high fever, but the doctors are making you better. Tears welled in Eliza's eyes. I want Mommy. The words punched through Tristan's chest. 3 years and the grief still had teeth. I know, baby, I know. He had no other comfort to offer. Nothing that would make this truth easier. Eliza began to cry in earnest now, the kind of exhausted, sick child sobbing that broke a parent's heart. Tristan climbed onto the bed beside her, careful of the IV line, and held her as she wept. He was whispering meaningless reassurances when Eva appeared, drawn by the sound of distress. She didn't hesitate. Eva came straight to the bedside and sat on the edge of the mattress, her hand gentle on Eliza's back. "Hey, sweetheart, I know you're scared. Hospitals are scary places, especially at night, but I'm going to tell you a secret." Eliza's sobs quieted to hiccups, curiosity overriding fear. Eva leaned in conspiratorially. "Do you know what's special about Christmas Eve in hospitals?" Eliza shook her head, still clinging to Tristan, but watching Eva with wide eyes. Eva's voice dropped to a storytelling whisper. "On Christmas Eve, the hospital becomes a castle, and all the nurses become knights who protect brave princesses who are sick. We watch over them all night long, making sure they're safe and that the medicine makes them strong again." Eliza blinked, processing. "Are you a knight?" Eva nodded solemnly. "I am, and you're the bravest princess I've met tonight. Do you know how I can tell?" Eliza shook her head again, captivated now. "Because brave princesses don't hide from scary things. They face them with their dads beside them and knights watching over them." Eva smiled. "And in the morning, when the sun comes up on Christmas Day, you'll be so much better. Strong enough to go home and have all your favorite things." Eliza considered this, her child's mind working through the metaphor. "Will you stay all night to keep the castle safe?" Eva's hand never left Eliza's back, the gesture maternal and sure. "I'll be right here, I promise. Every hour I'll check on you, and your dad will be here too. You're completely safe." The tension drained from Eliza's small body. She settled back against the pillows, one hand clutching Tristan's shirt, the other reaching for Eva's fingers. "Can you tell me about the castle? About the other princesses?" Eva launched into an improvised fairy tale, her voice low and soothing, spinning a story about a castle in the clouds where sick children became heroes who fought dragons made of fever and fear. Tristan listened, transfixed not by the story but by the woman telling it. Eva's face transformed as she wove the narrative. Years falling away, tiredness replaced by pure joy of storytelling. She made dragons roar and princesses laugh, and knights ride to the rescue. And Eliza's eyes grew heavy, her breathing evening out until she finally slipped back into sleep, still holding both their hands. Eva finished the story in a whisper, though Eliza was already dreaming. She carefully extracted her fingers and stood, checking the monitors one final time. When she looked at Tristan, there were tears in her eyes that matched his own. "Thank you." Tristan's voice came out rough. "That was incredible. She hasn't let anyone comfort her like that since Rachel died. She's been so closed off, so scared of—" He stopped, overwhelmed. Eva wiped her eyes quickly, professional mask sliding back into place. "She's at that age where loss is confusing. My son went through something similar when his father left. They just need to know someone's there, that they're not alone in the scary moments." Tristan wanted to ask more, wanted to understand how someone could walk away from a child, how Eva had survived it, what made her strong enough to work nights helping other people's children when her own was at home. But Eva was already moving toward the curtain, distance reasserting itself. "Get some rest, Tristan, both of you. The worst is over." She paused at the edge of the partition, looking back. "And for what it's worth, you're a good father. Eliza knows she's loved. That's the only thing that really matters." She left before Tristan could respond, and he sat in the dim room with his sleeping daughter, feeling the weight of the night shift into something else. Something that felt dangerously like gratitude mixed with an attraction he had no business feeling toward his daughter's nurse. At 4 in the morning, Eva returned with more coffee and a genuine smile. They talked in whispers about children and loss, and the impossible balance of work and parenting. Tristan learned that Declan loved dinosaurs with encyclopedic obsession, that Eva had worked her way through nursing school on scholarships and night jobs, that she'd moved to New York 7 years ago for reasons she didn't specify. He told her about the pressure of running his consulting business in an industry dominated by giants, about how work had become his escape after Rachel's death, until it nearly consumed him. At 6 in the morning shift began filtering in, and Eva prepared to hand off her patients. Eliza woke again, groggy but coherent, her fever broken. The doctor cleared her to go home with rest and medication, and Tristan felt the last of the night's terror release its grip. He turned to thank Eva one final time, to express something that went beyond gratitude for medical care. But she was already preparing to leave, shedding the exhaustion like a coat, moving with renewed purpose as her shift ended and her other life began. "Eva, wait!" Tristan stood, Eliza's hand in his. "I don't know how to thank you properly. You didn't just save Eliza's life tonight. You—" He struggled for words that wouldn't sound inadequate or inappropriate. "You reminded me what kindness looks like." Eva's smile was warm but distant, already withdrawing. "I'm glad I could help. That's the job." She started to walk away, then hesitated. "Take care of yourself, Tristan. And Eliza. Merry Christmas." Tristan made a decision driven by impulse and sleep deprivation, and something he hadn't felt in 3 years. "Can I buy you coffee sometime? Real coffee, not vending machine disaster. Just to say thank you." Eva's face shifted through emotions, too quick to name. Surprise, pleasure, conflict, something that looked like fear. "I don't think that's a good idea, Mr. Ashford." The sudden formality stung. "Tristan, please." "And why not?" Eva glanced down at her scrubs, then at Tristan's expensive winter coat draped over the chair. "Because you're a man who drives a Mercedes to the emergency room, and I'm a woman who takes the bus to Queens. That's two different worlds." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Thank you for the thought, but no." She walked away before Tristan could argue, disappearing into the morning shift change, leaving him standing in the examination bay with his daughter and the uncomfortable realization that he wanted to see her again, needed to see her again, and had absolutely no idea why or how to make that happen. Eliza tugged his hand. "Daddy, can we go home now?" Tristan looked down at his daughter's tired face and made the only choice available. "Yes, sweetheart, let's go home." But as they walked out of Manhattan General into the Christmas morning snow, Tristan couldn't stop thinking about the nurse who'd hummed Christmas carols and told fairy tales and looked at him with eyes that held secrets he desperately wanted to understand. 3 days later, Tristan sat in his home office overlooking the Hudson River, pretending to review investment portfolios while his mind replayed the hospital encounter for the 100th time. The brownstone in Brooklyn Heights had been Rachel's dream. 5 bedrooms of renovated elegance worth $8 million now, though he would have traded it all to have her back. Eliza was at school, recovered fully, chattering about Miss Eva, the brave knight who protected her in the hospital castle. Mrs. Whitmore had given him a knowing look when she picked up on his daughter's new fixation. The computer screen in front of him showed nothing useful. He minimized the financial reports and opened a browser, fingers hesitating over the keyboard. Then he typed, "Evangeline Bellamy, nurse, Manhattan General." The results were sparse. No Facebook, no Instagram, no LinkedIn, no Twitter. For a 35-year-old woman in 2024, the absence was strange. Deliberate, even. Employment records showed her working at Manhattan General for 6 years. Before that, Columbia Nursing School. Before that, nothing. As if she hadn't existed before moving to New York. Tristan sat back in his chair, studying the lack of information like a puzzle that refused to solve itself. Most people left digital footprints everywhere. Eva Bellamy had walked through the world like a ghost. He made another decision that crossed several boundaries. He wouldn't show up at her apartment. That was stalker territory. But he could send a thank you gift to the hospital. Something appropriate. Something that acknowledged what she'd done for Eliza without being weird or creepy or suggesting anything beyond gratitude. He spent an embarrassing amount of time selecting the gift. Not flowers, too romantic. Not chocolate, too personal. Finally, inspiration struck. He remembered Eva talking about Declan, about reading him Christmas stories. Tristan found a beautiful illustrated edition of a children's book called The Brave Princess and the Dragon. Perfect. He added a handwritten note on plain cardstock, nothing with his company letterhead. For Declan, thank you for caring for Eliza and for reminding me what kindness looks like. Tristan and Eliza Ashford. Then, feeling slightly guilty but determined, he tucked $500 bills inside as a bookmark. Eva would refuse cash if he tried to hand it to her, but finding it later, meant for her son's Christmas, maybe she'd accept it. He arranged delivery to the hospital, marked for Eva Bellamy, night shift. Then he tried to forget about it and focus on the financial reports that determined whether his carefully constructed cover story would hold. Because Tristan Ashford wasn't really a consultant managing a modest portfolio. He was the founder of Ashford Analytics, a company he'd built from a Stanford dorm room into an AI-powered supply chain revolution. Google had purchased it 5 years ago for $2.8 billion cash. He'd walked away with enough money to buy anything he wanted and discovered the hard way that what he wanted, Rachel healthy, Eliza happy, a life that meant something beyond quarterly earnings, couldn't be purchased at any price. So he'd left California, come back to New York with his daughter, and decided to live like a normal person. To see if anyone could love Tristan the man instead of Ashford the billionaire. Rachel's dying words haunted him. Don't let money destroy love again. Find someone who sees you for who you are, not what you have. 3 years later, he was still looking. The gift arrived at Manhattan General 3 nights after Christmas. Eva was on break when the hospital volunteer brought it to the staff lounge, a beautifully wrapped package with her name written in elegant script. Her colleague, Vanessa Brooks, looked up from her phone. Secret admirer? Eva's hands trembled slightly as she unwrapped it. The book appeared first, illustrated cover showing a princess facing down a dragon with a sword made of starlight. Then she opened the cover and found the note. Found the money. The tears came before she could stop them. Vanessa set down her phone, concerned now. You okay, Grace? Eva wiped her eyes quickly, nodding. Yeah, just... someone was kind, that's all. But it wasn't fine. Kindness undid her in ways cruelty never could. $500 meant groceries for 2 months. It meant Declan's winter coat wouldn't have duct tape holding the zipper. It meant she could pay the electric bill without choosing between heat and food. It meant Tristan Ashford saw her struggle and tried to help without making her feel small. That night, after her shift ended, Eva rode the bus back to Queens with the book clutched in her arms and the money hidden in her scrubs pocket. She climbed 3 flights to her walk-up apartment where Mrs. Sullivan was asleep on the couch and Declan was curled in his makeshift bed in the living room alcove. Eva paid Mrs. Sullivan the $20 she could barely afford, thanked her, and waited until the older woman left before sitting on the edge of Declan's bed. Her son stirred, blinking up at her with eyes that had his father's shape, but none of his coldness. Mama? Hey, baby, I brought you something. She showed him the book. Declan's face lit up with the kind of pure joy that made every terrible shift worth it. Can you read it to me? Eva crawled into the narrow bed beside her son and opened to the first page. She read about brave princesses and fearsome dragons and knights who protected the innocent. And with every word she thought about Tristan Ashford's handwriting, his tired eyes, the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. And she thought about Marcus Thornton, the man who'd gotten her pregnant 7 years ago. The financial analyst who'd promised forever and delivered abandonment. The father who'd texted, "You're on your own," and then vanished into his career like Declan never existed. Eva had built a good life from those ashes. Small, but theirs. Safe. And now Tristan Ashford threatened that safety simply by being kind. Because Eva knew what happened when rich men noticed poor women. They got bored. They left. And the women were left picking up pieces while men like Marcus Thornton climbed corporate ladders to success. She wouldn't let that happen to Declan. She wouldn't let herself hope. But late that night, After Declan fell asleep, Eva allowed herself one moment of weakness. She pulled out her phone and typed, "Tristan Ashford, consultant," into the search bar. Her finger hovered over the search button. Then she closed the browser without looking. Some mysteries were safer left unsolved. 2 weeks after Christmas, Tristan found himself in a Queens supermarket at 9 on a Saturday morning, telling himself he wasn't stalking Eva Bellamy. He was merely shopping in a different neighborhood because the produce was better here. Definitely not because he'd spent an hour mapping grocery stores within walking distance of her apartment address, calculating the probability of a chance encounter. The self-awareness of his own ridiculousness didn't stop him from loitering in the cereal aisle, pretending to compare nutritional information on boxes of sugary kids cereal that Eliza would love and Rachel would have vetoed. He'd been there 20 minutes, feeling increasingly foolish, when a familiar voice made him turn. Eva stood 3 feet away, pushing a cart with a small, dark-haired boy perched in the child seat. She wore jeans and an oversized sweater, hair in a messy bun, no makeup, looking exhausted and beautiful, and entirely unprepared to find her daughter's former patient's father haunting the Cheerios section. Her eyes widened in recognition, followed by something that might have been alarm. "Mr. Ashford, what are you doing here?" Tristan's prepared excuse about better produce died on his lips. The truth came out instead, awkward and honest. "I was in the neighborhood." He gestured vaguely at his cart, which contained only the cereal box he'd been pretending to read for 20 minutes. Eva's expression made clear exactly how much she believed that. "This isn't your neighborhood." "No." Tristan gave up on pretense entirely. "It's not. I came hoping to run into you because you wouldn't let me buy you coffee, and I wanted to thank you properly for Eliza, and to see if you got the book." Something in Eva's face softened, walls lowering just slightly. "We got it. Declan loves it. And the gift?" She glanced at her son, lowering her voice. "That was too generous. It wasn't generous enough." Tristan meant it. He looked at the boy in the cart, who watched him with solemn dark eyes. "You must be Declan. Your mom told me you're the world's leading dinosaur expert." Declan's face lit up, shyness overcome by obsession. "I know 17 different types of sauropods and all the periods of the Mesozoic era." Tristan grinned. "That's impressive. My daughter Eliza loves ballet, but she doesn't know 17 types of anything except maybe tutus." Declan giggled, a bright sound that made Eva's expression warm. She watched her son with fierce, protective love Tristan recognized from his own interactions with Eliza. These were two single parents doing their best in a city designed to eat the vulnerable. Before Tristan could stop her, Eliza appeared from the neighboring aisle where he'd left her, comparing Pop-Tart flavors. She stopped short at seeing Eva, then let out a squeal of delight. "Miss Eva! You're the nurse who saved me." Eva's professional mask fell away, replaced by genuine affection. "Hi, Eliza. Are you feeling better?" Eliza launched into enthusiastic descriptions of her recovery, her Christmas presents, her new ballet shoes, all while gravitating toward Declan with the magnetic pull of children who recognize kindred spirits. Within moments, the two kids were deep in conversation about dinosaurs versus ballet, with Eliza insisting that ballerinas were basically dinosaurs because they both had good balance. Tristan and Eva stood awkwardly by their carts, forced into proximity by their children's immediate friendship. Eva looked uncomfortable, trapped between wanting to escape and not wanting to disappoint her son. Tristan seized the moment. They seemed to be getting along. Eva's smile was helpless. "Yeah, Declan doesn't warm up to people easily. Not since—" She stopped, the sentence unfinished. "Not since his father left." Tristan said it gently, without judgment. Eva's eyes snapped to his, surprised he remembered. "Yeah." They stood in the cereal aisle while their children chattered, and silence stretched until Eliza solved the problem for them. She tugged Tristan's sleeve, her face hopeful in ways he hadn't seen in years. "Daddy, can Declan come to my birthday party?" It's next Saturday and there's going to be a bounce house. Tristan looked at Eva, saw panic in her eyes, the instinct to refuse. But Declan had already gasped with excitement, and Eva was trapped between fear and her son's happiness. Tristan kept his voice casual, unthreatening. You'd both be welcome. It's just a small party at our house, nothing fancy. Eliza would love to have Declan there. Eva's internal struggle played across her face. She looked at Declan's hopeful expression, at Eliza's eager smile, at Tristan's carefully neutral face that tried to hide how much he wanted her to say yes. Finally, she nodded. Okay, we'll come. Declan's whoop of joy made other shoppers look over, but Tristan didn't care. Eva had said yes. He'd see her again. That was enough for now. They exchanged numbers, Eva giving hers with visible reluctance, and addresses. Tristan noticed Eva's careful observation of his expensive coat, his leather boots, the cart contents that included organic produce and name brands. She was cataloging the class difference, reinforcing her initial rejection. At checkout, Tristan watched Eva unload her cart. Generic brands, careful budgeting, coupons clipped from newspapers. When the cashier rang up the total, Eva pulled out cash and counted it precisely. Tristan saw the math happening in her head, the constant calculation of someone living paycheck to paycheck. He wanted to offer to pay, wanted to help, but the set of Eva's shoulders told him charity would end whatever fragile connection they'd built. So he stayed silent, checked out his own groceries, and walked with her to the parking lot where his Mercedes sat gleaming next to the bus stop. Eva stopped, looking at the car, then at him. That's your car? Yeah. Tristan felt absurdly guilty about it. And you drove it to Queens to accidentally run into me. Tristan had the grace to look embarrassed. I did. I'm sorry if that's creepy. I just wanted to see you again, and you wouldn't let me do it the normal way. Eva studied him for a long moment, and Tristan couldn't read the emotions crossing her face. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft. It's not creepy, it's sweet, and that's what scares me. She gathered Declan closer, preparing to walk to the bus stop. See you Saturday, Tristan. She walked away before he could offer them a ride. Tristan watched her go, understanding that for Eva, accepting help meant losing something she couldn't afford to lose. Independence, control, the carefully maintained distance that kept her safe from whatever she was running from. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, the kind of crisp winter day that made everything feel possible. Tristan's brownstone wasn't a mansion, but it was comfortable. 4 bedrooms, a backyard big enough for the rented bounce house, a kitchen where Rachel had once baked birthday cakes from scratch before the cancer made her too weak to stand. He'd hired caterers rather than attempt cooking, hired entertainment, hired everything that could be hired because delegation was easier than participation. The party filled with Eliza's classmates and their parents, a collection of New York professionals in expensive casual wear who worked as much as they supervised their children. Tristan moved through the crowd with practiced ease, playing the role of successful single father who had everything under control. Then Eva arrived with Declan, and his practiced ease evaporated. She wore a simple blue dress, nothing fancy, her hair down for the first time since he'd met her. She looked beautiful and uncomfortable, clutching Declan's hand as they approached the front door. Tristan saw her take in the house, the manicured lawn, the Tesla in the driveway, and watched her shoulders tense. He tried to downplay his circumstances, but reality was unavoidable. He had money, she didn't, and that gap felt insurmountable. Eva, Declan, I'm so glad you came. Tristan kept his voice warm, welcoming, trying to ease the tension in Eva's posture. Eliza appeared at his elbow, already bouncing with excitement. She grabbed Declan's hand without preamble. Come on, the bounce house is in the backyard, and there's face painting, and my friend Maya brought her puppy. Declan looked at his mother for permission. Eva nodded, her smile forced. The boys disappeared into the chaos of children, leaving Tristan and Eva alone in the doorway.
Can I get you something to drink?
Tristan stopped, aware that offering wine or craft beer to someone who'd taken the bus might feel like showing off. We have everything, whatever you want. Eva's smile turned genuine, reading his discomfort. Water would be great, thank you. Tristan led her through the house to the kitchen, hyper-aware of her taking in details. The renovated kitchen with granite counters, the photos on the fridge of Eliza and Rachel, the expensive coffee maker he'd bought and never learned to use properly. He grabbed bottled water from the refrigerator and handed it to Eva, their fingers brushing in the exchange. Your home is lovely. Eva's voice was sincere, but Tristan heard the unspoken subtext. It was Rachel's dream house. She picked out every detail before she got sick. Tristan didn't know why he said it, except that Eva's presence made him want honesty. I kept everything the same after she died. Eliza needed the stability. And I guess I did too. Eva's eyes swept the room again, seeing it differently now. Not evidence of wealth, but shrine to grief. It must be hard living with all these memories. Some days, Tristan leaned against the counter, holding his own water bottle like a lifeline. Other days it's comforting, like she's still here, watching over us. They stood in the kitchen while chaos reigned in the backyard, and the moment stretched into something intimate. Eva studied his face, and Tristan had the unsettling feeling she saw too much. Saw through his careful performance to the lonely widower underneath. The spell broke when another parent came looking for paper towels, and Eva excused herself to check on Declan. Tristan watched her go, then returned to hosting duties with strange hollowness in his chest. The party progressed with controlled chaos of 9-year-olds hopped up on sugar. Tristan watched from the patio as Eliza and Declan became inseparable. The little boy's initial shyness evaporated in the face of Eliza's confident enthusiasm. They took turns in the bounce house, got matching tiger face paintings, shared pizza with easy camaraderie of children who recognized something in each other. Eva stood apart from the other parents, nursing her water, looking uncomfortable every time someone tried to include her in conversation. Tristan saw one of the other mothers, Catherine Wells from Eliza's ballet class, lean over with a too bright smile and ask what Eva did for work. He saw Eva's quiet pride as she explained she was a nurse. Saw Catherine's expression shift from polite interest to dismissal. Saw Eva notice that shift and withdraw further into herself. Something protective flared in Tristan's chest. He crossed the patio and inserted himself into the conversation with easy authority of the host. Eva saved Eliza's life on Christmas Eve. If it wasn't for her, we might have lost. His voice caught, and he didn't have to fake the emotion. She's the reason my daughter is here celebrating her birthday. The other parents' expressions transformed immediately. Eva had been a nurse, dismissible in their wealth calculation, but a nurse who'd saved the host's daughter made her a hero. Interesting, worth including. Tristan watched Eva recognize the shift and saw her conflicted gratitude. She didn't like needing his intervention, but she appreciated it. Catherine gushed about how wonderful nurses were, how underappreciated, how brave. The other parents chimed in with stories of medical emergencies and healthcare heroes. Eva accepted the attention with quiet grace, never claiming more credit than she deserved, never playing up drama. Tristan found himself falling a little bit in love with her humility. As the party wound down and parents collected sugar-crashed children, Eva sought out Tristan to say goodbye. Declan clung to Eliza, both children promising to be best friends forever, with intensity only children could manage. Thank you for inviting us. Eva's voice was soft, genuine. Declan hasn't been to a party like this in, well, ever. His father never. She stopped, the old wound still raw. Tristan wanted to close the distance between them, wanted to touch her arm or take her hand or do something to bridge the gap. But he held himself still, aware of boundaries. I'm glad you came. Eliza's been talking about Declan all week. Eva smiled, and something in her face opened. He's been the same. You're raising a wonderful daughter, Tristan. You're raising a wonderful son. Tristan meant it. Declan had been polite, enthusiastic, grateful despite difficult circumstances. They stood in the foyer while their children said elaborate goodbyes, and Tristan made a decision. Eva, can I take you to coffee? Just coffee. Not as a date, not as anything but two single parents who might become friends. Please. Eva's internal struggle was visible. She looked at Declan, at Eliza, at evidence of the life Tristan had built. When she finally met his eyes, there was resignation and hope and fear all mixed together. One coffee, that's all I can promise. Tristan's heart kicked against his ribs. One coffee is perfect. They made plans for the following Sunday morning, a neutral diner that Eva chose. Nothing fancy, nothing that would make her uncomfortable. She left with Declan and Tristan watched them walk to the bus stop from his front porch, his daughter waving beside him. Daddy, I really like Declan. Eliza's voice was dreamy. Miss Eva is nice. She's not trying to be my new mom or anything. She's just nice. Tristan pulled Eliza against his side, kissing the top of her head. Yeah, sweetheart, she really is. But as he watched Eva and Declan disappear around the corner, Tristan couldn't shake the feeling that Eva was hiding something. Something bigger than a difficult ex-husband or financial struggles. Something that made her afraid to let people close. And he had no idea how to ask about it without pushing her away entirely. Sunday morning arrived cold and bright. The kind of January day that made New York feel scrubbed clean. Tristan sat in a corner booth of Rosie's Diner, a place with cracked vinyl seats and laminated menus advertising breakfast specials that hadn't changed price since 2008. He'd arrived 15 minutes early, too nervous to time it properly, and spent the interval watching the door and second-guessing everything. Eva appeared exactly on time, bundled in a coat that had seen too many winters, her hair loose around her shoulders. She spotted him and offered a tentative smile that made his chest tight. Tristan stood, nearly knocking over his water glass, and gestured to the booth with awkward formality. Eva slid into the opposite seat, unwinding her scarf. You're early. Tristan's laugh came out too loud. Couldn't sleep, too much coffee already, which makes this choice of meeting place ironic. Eva's smile turned genuine. The coffee here is actually decent, and the pancakes are better than they have any right to be for $3. They ordered coffee and pancakes for Eva, the same for Tristan, though he wasn't hungry. The waitress, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and tired feet, took their orders with practiced efficiency and left them in awkward silence of two people who wanted something but didn't know how to reach for it. Tristan broke first. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. Eva wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, studying the liquid like it held answers. I almost didn't. This is complicated for me, getting close to people, because of Declan's father. Tristan said it carefully without pressure. Eva's eyes lifted to meet his, and he saw weariness there. That's part of it. He made me feel small, like I wasn't enough, like I'd never be enough. She paused, choosing words with visible care. When he left, it wasn't just abandonment. There were things about him I didn't know, dangerous things. And by the time I figured it out, I was pregnant and alone and scared. Tristan's protective instinct flared hot. Did he hurt you? Not physically, Eva's voice went quiet, but emotionally, yeah. He lied about who he was, what he wanted, used me. And when I discovered the truth, I had to run, had to disappear. That's why I came to New York, why I worked nights, She stopped, realizing she'd said too much. Why you don't have social media or any digital footprint. Why you live like someone who doesn't want to be found. Tristan leaned forward, keeping his voice gentle. Eva, if you're in danger, if someone's threatening you, I can help. Eva pulled back, walls slamming into place. I don't need rescuing, Tristan. I've managed fine for 6 years. I'm safe here. Declan's safe. I just need to stay invisible. The pancakes arrived, interrupting tension. They ate in silence for a moment, the mundane act of cutting and chewing, giving them space to retreat from the edge of something too raw. Tristan tried again, softer this time. I'm not trying to rescue you. I'm trying to understand you because I haven't felt this way since Rachel. Haven't wanted to know someone, to be with someone in 3 years. And it terrifies me. Eva's fork paused halfway to her mouth. She set it down, her eyes searching his face. What exactly are you saying? Tristan's heart hammered. I'm saying I want to know you, the real you. Whatever you're hiding, whatever made you run, it doesn't matter. I want to know the woman who saved my daughter and told her fairy tales and works herself to exhaustion, helping other people's children. I want to know Eva Bellamy. He paused. Or whoever you really are. Eva's breath hitched. She looked down at her hands, and when she spoke, her voice trembled. What if knowing me puts you in danger? What if the people I'm hiding from find me, and you and Eliza get caught in the crossfire? Then we deal with it together. The words came out with more certainty than Tristan felt. Whatever it is, Eva, together. She looked at him for a long moment, emotions warring across her face. Finally, she reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. Okay, but slowly. I need time to figure out how to do this without putting everyone at risk. Tristan squeezed her hand, triumph and terror mixing in his chest. Slowly works. We've got time. But even as he said it, he wondered if that was true. Because Eva looked like someone who'd spent 6 years waiting for the other shoe to drop. And Tristan had no idea how to catch it when it finally fell. The next 6 weeks unfolded in careful increments. Coffee dates became Sunday morning traditions. Tristan and Eva met at Rosie's every week, talking for hours about everything and nothing. She told him about nursing school, about exhaustion of working nights while raising a toddler, about small victories that made the struggle worthwhile. He told her about inheriting expectations he never asked for, about pressure of living up to standards he didn't set, about how Rachel's illness had taught him that success meant nothing without someone to share it with. He kept his language vague, his work deliberately unclear, and Eva never pushed for details. They kept it separate from the kids at first, protecting Eliza and Declan from expectations neither adult was ready to meet. But children had their own plans. Eliza begged for playdates with Declan, and Eva couldn't refuse without explanation. So the four of them started spending Saturdays together. The zoo, the Natural History Museum, the park when weather allowed. Tristan watched Eva with his daughter and saw something he thought he'd never find again. Eliza responded to her with openness that had been locked away since Rachel's death. Eva never tried to be Eliza's mother, never overstepped or pushed. She was simply present, kind, interested in ballet recitals and school dramas with genuine care. And Declan, the quiet, watchful boy who'd been hurt by his father's abandonment, opened up around Tristan like a flower towards sun. Tristan taught him to throw a football badly, took him to a Yankees game where Declan spent more time asking questions about the stadium's construction than watching baseball. Eliza appointed herself Declan's big sister, despite being only 2 years older, bossing him around with affection that made both adults laugh. 3 weeks into their careful courtship, Tristan walked Eva home after dinner. They'd been to a small Italian place in her neighborhood, nothing fancy, splitting the check despite Tristan's protests. Eva had learned to let him pay sometimes, but she insisted on equality, on maintaining independence. They stood outside her apartment building, a 6-story walk-up with chipped paint and a security door that didn't quite close right. Tristan had walked her home 3 times now, and each time he'd wanted to kiss her, and each time he'd lost his nerve. Tonight felt different. Eva turned to face him, her back against the building entrance, and there was something in her eyes that looked like permission. Tristan stepped closer, giving her space to retreat, but she didn't move. His hand came up to cup her cheek, and her eyes fluttered closed. I haven't felt this way since my wife died, His voice came out rough, honest. You scare me, Ava. The possibility of you scares me. Eva's eyes opened, dark and deep. I'm scared too. Of this being real and then losing it. Tristan closed the distance between them, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was gentle and desperate and full of 3 years of loneliness, finally finding an end. Eva's hands fisted in his coat, pulling him closer, and for a perfect moment, everything else disappeared. The cold, the fear, the complications. None of it mattered except the warmth of her mouth and the rightness of holding her. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. Eva's voice came out shaky. Tristan, there are things about me you don't know. Things that might... He silenced her with another kiss, softer this time. Then tell me when you're ready. I'm not going anywhere. But Eva's phone chose that moment to shatter intimacy. It buzzed in her pocket, insistent, and she pulled it out with a grimace. Her face went white as she read the screen. Tristan caught a glimpse of the caller ID before she turned away. Marcus, Houston area code, Eva answered in a low, tense voice, turning away from Tristan. I can't talk right now. No, I understand. How bad? Okay, I'll call you back. She hung up and stood very still, her back to Tristan, shoulders rigid with tension. When she finally turned around, there were tears in her eyes. I have to go. I'm sorry, there's a situation. I need to. She was already backing toward the building entrance. I'll call you tomorrow, I promise. Tristan reached for her, concerned. Eva, wait. Let me help. Whatever it is. But she was already inside, the door closing between them, leaving Tristan standing on the cold street, wondering what kind of emergency made someone look that terrified. Eva didn't call the next day, or the day after that. Tristan tried her number 3 times and got voicemail each time. He stopped by the hospital and learned she'd called in sick for her next 2 shifts, something the nurses said she never did. He drove past her apartment building and saw no lights in what he guessed was her window. Eliza asked about Declan constantly, and Tristan had no answers. He told her Eva was dealing with family stuff, that they needed to give her space, but his daughter's disappointed face mirrored his own confusion. On the 3rd day, Tristan sat in his home office trying to focus when his phone rang. Unknown number, he answered. Mr. Ashford? The voice was male, professional, with a slight Texas drawl. This is Thomas Whitaker from Titan Chain Capital. I'm calling on behalf of my employer, Marcus Thornton, regarding a mutual acquaintance. Tristan's blood went cold. I don't know anyone at Titan Chain Capital. A soft chuckle. I think you do, Evangeline Bellamy, and her son, Declan. My employer recently learned of the boy's existence. He's very interested in establishing a relationship. Who the hell is this? Marcus Thornton, CEO of Titan Chain Capital, also happens to be Declan's biological father. And Mr. Ashford, we know you've been seeing Mrs. Bellamy. We thought you should be aware that custody arrangements are being discussed. Tristan's hand tightened on the phone. If you're threatening Eva, just informing you of the situation. Mr. Thornton wanted you to understand the complexity before you get more involved. Have a good day, Mr. Ashford. The line went dead. Tristan stared at his phone, mind racing. Then he opened his laptop and typed, Marcus Thornton, Titan Chain Capital. The results loaded, and his worst fears crystallized into reality. Marcus Thornton, age 34, CEO and founder of Titan Chain Capital, net worth estimated at $400 million, aggressive investor known for hostile takeovers, ex-Goldman Sachs, Houston native. And in the photos, a man with the same dark eyes as Declan. Eva's ex wasn't just some financial analyst who'd walked away. He was a predator with unlimited resources, and he'd just found his son. Tristan grabbed his keys and headed for the door. Eva might not want his help, but she was going to get it anyway. Tristan drove straight to Eva's apartment, breaking speed limits and running a red light he'd regret later if a ticket arrived. The Queen's walk-up looked shabby in afternoon light, paint peeling, steps cracked. The kind of building that housed people one paycheck from disaster. He took the stairs two at a time to the third floor and pounded on her door harder than he should have. "Eva, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Please." Silence. But he heard movement inside, the creak of floorboards. Someone standing on the other side listening. Tristan's voice softened. "I got a call from Marcus Thornton's lawyer today about custody. Eva, you don't have to face this alone." More silence, then locks turning, the chain sliding free. The door opened 6 inches, and Eva stood in the gap. She looked terrible. Eyes red from crying, hair uncombed, wearing the same clothes she'd had on 3 days ago. Behind her, Tristan glimpsed packed suitcases. His heart stopped. "You're leaving." Eva's voice came out flat, defeated. "I have to. It's not safe for you anymore. For Eliza, Marcus is dangerous, and if he's digging into my background, he'll find things that—" She stopped, tears spilling over.
I can't let you get hurt because of me.
Tristan pushed the door open, and Eva didn't resist. He stepped into her tiny apartment for the first time. Kitchen barely big enough for one person. Living room that doubled as Declan's bedroom. Furniture from thrift stores. Nothing about it suggested any connection to wealth or power. But on the coffee table sat an open laptop displaying a news article with a Houston dateline, and Tristan caught the headline before Eva closed it. "Thornton announces family law initiative, pledges support for father's rights." The pieces clicked with devastating clarity. He's not just threatening custody, he's making it public, turning it into a cause. Eva sank onto the couch, her face in her hands. When she looked up, there was resignation in her eyes, the kind that came from knowing the charade was over. "Marcus texted me 4 days ago, said he knew about Declan, said he wanted to meet. When I refused, his lawyer sent papers, DNA test results. He bribed someone at Declan's pediatrician's office for a sample, proof of paternity, and a custody filing." Her voice broke. "He's asking for joint custody immediately, with a path to full custody within 6 months. Every single thing he'll use against me is the result of him abandoning us." Tristan took her hands, forcing her to look at him. "Then we fight. I have resources too. Lawyers, character witnesses." Eva pulled away. "You don't understand. It's not just about Declan. Marcus knows things. About my past. About why I disappeared. If this goes to court, if he exposes everything, you'll be dragged into it. Your daughter will be dragged into it. I won't do that to you." Tristan's jaw set. "Then tell me, right now, whatever you're hiding, whatever you're so afraid of, just tell me so we can deal with it together." Eva stood, pacing the small space like a caged animal. "I can't. You'll look at me differently. You'll realize I'm not who you think I am, and you'll leave. Everyone leaves, Tristan." "I'm not everyone." His voice carried a certainty he didn't entirely feel. Eva stopped pacing. She looked at him for a long moment, measuring something he couldn't see. Then she pulled out her phone, typed something, and held it out to him. "Google this. Tristan Ashford. Ashford Analytics. Then we'll talk about who's hiding what." Tristan's stomach dropped. "How long have you known?" "Since the night Marcus called. He told me you weren't who you pretended to be. I didn't want to believe him, but I looked." Her voice was steady, more hurt than angry. "Forbes says you're worth $2.8 billion. You sold your company to Google 5 years ago. You're not a consultant managing a modest portfolio. You're a billionaire playing dress-up." Tristan stood, hands shaking. "Let me explain." Eva held up a hand. "You tested me. That's what this was. Poor nurse, rich man in disguise. Let's see if she's a gold digger." How romantic. Her sarcasm cut like a blade. "That's not what happened." "Yes, it is. You lied about who you are for 3 months. Every coffee date, every conversation about work stress, every time I worried about the class difference between us. You knew the truth, and you let me believe the lie." Tristan's defense crumbled because she was right. Rachel died chasing status. chasing the Silicon Valley lifestyle. Before she died, she made me promise I'd never let money destroy love again, that I'd find someone who could love me for who I am, not what I have. So you decided to lie instead? Eva's voice rose. That's not trust, Tristan. That's manipulation. I was scared. The admission came out raw. Scared that if you knew the truth, everything would change. That you'd see the money instead of me. Eva's expression softened slightly, but the hurt remained. And I was scared you'd leave when you realized how broken I am, how much baggage I carry. But I didn't lie to you. I just hadn't told you everything yet. There's a difference. She grabbed her coat from the back of a chair. I need air. I need to think. Please leave. Eva, don't. Leave, Tristan. Her voice was quiet but final. And for what it's worth, I don't care about the money. I care that you didn't trust me enough to be honest. She walked out of her own apartment, leaving Tristan standing in the wreckage of whatever they'd been building. He looked at the packed suitcases, at the laptop still open to articles about Marcus Thornton's wealth and power, at the life Eva had built from nothing that was about to be torn apart. And he made a decision. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in 2 years. Harrison, it's Tristan Ashford. I need the best family law attorney in New York. Price is irrelevant, and I need them today. 4 days later, Eva sat in a conference room at Whitmore and Associates, one of Manhattan's premier family law firms, wondering how her life had spiraled so far out of control. She'd agreed to this meeting because Tristan had begged, because his lawyer had assured her the consultation was free, because some part of her was too exhausted to keep fighting alone. The attorney, Margaret Whitmore, was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'd spent 2 hours reviewing Eva's case, Marcus's filing, and the evidence he'd compiled. Now she sat back in her leather chair and delivered the verdict. Miss Bellamy, I'm going to be honest. This is going to be expensive and brutal. Mr. Thornton has retained Sullivan and Crowe, which means he's serious. But you have advantages. You've been Declan's primary caregiver for 6 years. You have stable employment, excellent references. Margaret leaned forward. The real question is what Mr. Thornton wants. Men like him don't suddenly develop paternal instincts after 6 years. He wants something else, and custody is leverage. Eva's phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. We should talk before this gets uglier. Coffee tomorrow? M. She showed the message to Margaret, who frowned. Don't meet him alone. If you're going to engage, do it with a witness present. Eva was already typing. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Rosie's Diner. Come alone. Margaret opened her mouth to protest, but Eva cut her off. I need to hear what he wants. From him, not filtered through lawyers. Then at least let me prepare you. And Ms. Bellamy, your phone. Keep voice memo recording during the meeting. New York is a one-party consent state. Whatever he says, we'll have proof. Rosie's Diner felt different the next morning. Eva arrived early, started the voice memo app on her phone, and set it on the table, microphone side up. Her hands shook slightly as she waited. Marcus arrived exactly at 10. He'd aged well, still handsome in that sharp-featured way that had attracted her when she was 28 and naive. Expensive suit, confidence that bordered on arrogance, the kind of man who'd never heard the word no and meant it. He slid into the booth across from her without asking permission. Eva, you look good. Cut the bullshit, Marcus. What do you want? His smile was thin, direct. I like that. He ordered coffee from the waitress, taking his time, making Eva wait. Power play. I want to know my son. You denied me that right for 6 years. You denied yourself that right when you texted, "You're on your own," and vanished. Eva kept her voice level. I was scared, young, stupid. Marcus leaned back, spreading his hands in mock contrition. But I've changed, built an empire. I can give Declan everything, best schools, travel, opportunities you can't provide on a nurse's salary. He's happy. He's loved. He doesn't need your money. Maybe not, but he needs a father. And legally, I am his father. DNA doesn't lie. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed her the lab results. 99.9% probability of paternity. Then why are we here? Why not just crush me in court? Eva needed to understand his angle. Marcus set down his coffee cup, his expression shifting to calculation. Because crushing you in court costs time and money, even for me. And there's an easier way. Your new boyfriend, Tristan Ashford, billionaire tech investor. He's been blocking some of my medtech acquisitions for 6 months. Cost me 3 deals. Eva's confusion must have shown because Marcus continued. I want him out of my way. You convince Ashford to stop blocking Titan Chain investments. Maybe even co-invest on the next deal. And I'll settle for reasonable visitation. Supervised at first, building to weekends, no custody fight. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a solution. Marcus pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Because if this goes to trial, I'll demonstrate why I'm the better parent. That means investigating your fitness thoroughly. Questions about why you're living in poverty while dating a billionaire. Is he supporting you? Are you using your son to angle for his money? None of it has to come out if you cooperate. Eva's hands clenched, but she forced herself to stay calm, to let him talk. The phone was recording every word. You have 48 hours to talk to Ashford. After that, I file amended motions and things get very ugly. Choose wisely. He stood, dropped cash on the table for his coffee, and left. Eva sat alone, staring at her phone. The recording was still running. She stopped it, saved the file, and immediately texted it to Margaret Whitmore. Then she texted Tristan, we need to talk. Your place. 1 hour. She arrived 90 minutes later, and Tristan could see the weight of whatever Marcus had said crushing her shoulders. He opened the door before she could knock, and Eliza appeared at the top of the stairs. Miss Eva. His daughter started down, but Tristan stopped her gently. Sweetie, Miss Eva and I need to talk grown-up stuff. Can you give us a few minutes? Eliza's face fell, but she nodded and disappeared back to her room. Eva watched her go with longing. Marcus laid out his terms. Eva's voice was hollow. He wants you to stop blocking his deals, maybe co-invest. In exchange, he drops the custody fight and settles for supervised visitation. Tristan's jaw clenched. He's using a 6-year-old as business leverage. Yes, and if we refuse, he'll drag us both through discovery that makes our lives public property. He'll question why I'm with you, make it look like I'm using Declan to get close to your money. Eva sank onto the couch. But I recorded him. Margaret taught me how. We have proof of the blackmail. Tristan sat beside her, close, but not touching. Then we don't negotiate, we expose him first. What? What if we stop hiding, both of us? What if we take away his leverage by making everything public before he can weaponize it? Eva stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You want to announce you're a billionaire who's been living like a regular person? I want to announce I fell in love with my daughter's nurse, that I hid my identity because I was scared of being used for money, that I was wrong to lie to you. And I want everyone to know Marcus Thornton abandoned his pregnant girlfriend, ignored his son for 6 years, and only showed up to use that child as business leverage. Tristan's voice grew stronger. Let him try to look like the victim after that. Eva shook her head slowly. You'll be humiliated, your privacy destroyed. Maybe, but Marcus's reputation, his business built on being the shark, that's harder to maintain when everyone knows he's also a deadbeat dad who blackmails women. It was scorched earth, mutually assured destruction. But Eva could see the logic. There's a children's hospital gala next week. Marcus sponsors it every year. 300 people from the New York business community. Tristan pulled out his phone. Metropolitan Museum. I'm invited. What if we both go? Together. Let Marcus see us. Then we control the narrative. Eva looked at their reflection in the darkened window. Two people who'd been hiding for different reasons. about to step into the light. Okay, we go to the gala. Together. No more hiding. She took his hand. But Tristan, after this, after the explosion, we figure out who we really are to each other. Not the roles we've been playing, just us. He agreed, though neither of them knew if there would be an us after the blast radius cleared. The week passed in tense preparation. Tristan hired security. Eva warned Declan there might be cameras soon. Margaret Whitmore prepared statements for media. And on Saturday evening, as snow began to fall over Manhattan, Tristan picked up Eva in a town car. She wore a borrowed black dress, hair swept to one side. She looked beautiful and terrified. Ready? No, but let's do it anyway. The Metropolitan Museum's ballroom glittered under chandeliers. 400 guests in evening wear, champagne flowing, string quartet playing. Eva stepped from the car and felt every eye land on her. Tristan appeared at her side, offering his arm. He wore a tuxedo that fit like it was made for him, because it was, and the Patek Philippe was visible now, no longer hidden. Cameras caught them at the entrance. Flashes erupted. Is that Tristan Ashford, the tech billionaire? Who's the woman? Phones appeared immediately, Google searches loading. Within minutes, half the room knew exactly who Tristan was and what he was worth. Within 10 minutes, they were speculating about Eva. Across the ballroom, Marcus Thornton stood with investors, champagne in hand. When he saw Tristan and Eva together, his face darkened. He excused himself and walked toward them. Here we go, Tristan murmured. Marcus reached them near the bar, his smile all teeth. Ashford, we finally meet properly. And Eva, you look lovely. Trading up from the bus, I see. Tristan's voice stayed level. Thornton, perfect timing. You're here to negotiate privately? Smart. Public confrontation is messy. We're not here to negotiate. Eva found her voice. We're here to be honest, something you've never tried. Marcus's smile faltered. Careful. We discussed consequences. You discussed blackmail. Tristan stepped slightly forward. Using a 6-year-old as leverage in a business dispute, that's low even for your industry. People nearby had gone quiet, listening, phones subtly recording. Tristan raised his voice slightly, just enough to carry. For anyone wondering why I've been absent from these events, it's simple. I wanted to know if anyone could see me as Tristan instead of as a billionaire. I wanted something real. He looked at Eva. I met a nurse who saved my daughter's life on Christmas Eve, who worked herself to exhaustion helping children, who built a good life from nothing after being abandoned by the man who got her pregnant. The room was listening now. Cameras recording. Marcus hissed. You're making a scene. You made this scene when you filed for custody of a son you ignored for 6 years. When you tried to use that custody as leverage against my business interests. Tristan pulled out his phone, connected to the room's sound system through the AV controls Margaret's tech specialist had hacked that afternoon. Marcus's voice filled the ballroom. You convince Ashford to stop blocking Titan Chain investments, and I'll settle for visitation. Otherwise, I'll take everything. The recording played the entire diner conversation. Every threat, every manipulation, every cold calculation. Silence blanketed the room when it ended. Then the whispers started. Deadbeat dad, blackmail, using his own kid. Marcus's face went purple. You son of a bitch. He lunged forward, but security was already there. Tristan's private detail positioning themselves between Marcus and the couple. Marcus was escorted from the gala while 400 people watched, while cameras captured everything, while his carefully built reputation shattered in real time. Eva stood frozen, watching the man who destroyed her life 7 years ago finally face consequences. She waited for triumph. Instead, she just felt tired. Tristan's arm came around her waist. Let's go home. But a small voice from the entrance stopped them. Mama? Eva turned and saw Declan standing there with Mrs. Whitmore, both children in pajamas. Eliza held Declan's hand. Mrs. Whitmore rushed forward, apologetic. Eliza FaceTimed my phone to check on Declan. He overheard us talking about the gala, saw our concerned faces. He insisted on coming. I'm so sorry. Declan ran to Eva, and she caught him, lifting him despite his weight. Everyone's saying things about you, about a man who wants to take me away. Mama, I don't want to go. You're not going anywhere, baby. I promise. Declan pulled back, looking at Tristan. Is he my dad? The man from the pictures? No. Tristan knelt to Declan's level. Your biological father's name is Marcus. He made mistakes. But kiddo, biology doesn't make someone a dad. Being there does. Loving someone because you choose to, not because you have to, that's what makes family. Declan looked at his mother, then back at Tristan. Can you be my dad instead? The question hung in the air, simple and devastating. Eva's tears finally came. That's something we all need to decide together. As a family, when things are calmer. Eliza tugged on Tristan's sleeve. He can share you, Daddy. Then he'll have one dad, which is more than he had before. The logic of children cut through complexity. Declan nodded, satisfied with that answer for now. The four of them stood together while the gala continued around them, and something that had been broken began to feel like it might heal. 3 months later, Eva stood outside family court, taking deep breaths. Inside, a judge would finalize the custody arrangement. Marcus had withdrawn his claim for joint custody after the gala scandal destroyed his reputation and cost him 2 major investors. But he'd requested supervised visitation rights, and Margaret advised accepting. Better to agree to limited, supervised contact than fight and risk a judge ordering more. Tristan stood beside her, solid and certain. Whatever happens, we deal with it together. Together, Eva repeated, testing the word. It still felt fragile, but real. Inside, the judge reviewed the settlement. Marcus would see Declan twice monthly, 4 hours each visit, court monitor present. After 6 months of consistent attendance, they'd revisit. Marcus sat across the courtroom, his legal team diminished. The swagger was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. His company had taken hits. 3 board members resigned, investors pulled funding. Turned out business partners didn't like working with men who blackmailed single mothers. The judge granted the order. Court adjourned. As Eva gathered her things, Marcus approached. His lawyer tried to stop him, but Marcus waved him off. Eva, 1 minute? She looked at Tristan, who nodded but stayed close. I'm sorry, Marcus's voice was quiet, for leaving 7 years ago, for using Declan as leverage, for all of it. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm going to show up for those visitations. Every one. I'm going to earn the right to know my son, even if it takes years. Eva studied his face. She found exhaustion there, and maybe the beginning of self-awareness. He's a good kid, smart, kind. You missed a lot. I know, that's on me. Marcus paused. And Ashford's a better man than I gave him credit for. If you're happy, I'm glad. He walked away before she could respond. Outside the courthouse, Eliza and Declan waited with Mrs. Whitmore. The children were teaching each other some complicated hand game, their laughter bright in the cold air. How'd it go? Tristan asked. It's over. He gets supervised visits twice a month. We get our lives back. Eva took a breath, feeling weight lift. So what now? Now we figure out what normal looks like. She smiled, reaching for his hand. For real this time. No more secrets, no more tests. Just us. Just us. Tristan agreed. He kissed her there on the courthouse steps, while their children made exaggerated gagging noises, and Mrs. Whitmore smiled and looked away. The snow had started falling again, completing the circle from where they'd begun. Christmas Eve in an emergency room felt like a lifetime ago. Eva thought about the scared little girl she'd comforted, about the desperate father who'd watched her with such gratitude, about 2 broken people who'd found each other in the chaos. They weren't fixed. Healing took time. Trust had to be rebuilt, brick by careful brick. But they had time now. and they had each other. As they walked to Tristan's car, he'd stopped hiding the Mercedes, stopped pretending to be someone he wasn't. Eva realized something fundamental had shifted, not just between them, but within her. For 6 years she'd been running, hiding from Marcus, from her past, from the possibility of being hurt again. She'd built a small, safe life and guarded it fiercely. But small and safe wasn't the same as whole. The kids piled into the back seat, still giggling, still teaching each other their complicated game. Tristan held the passenger door for Eva, and she paused before getting in. "Thank you for fighting for us, for choosing to blow up your privacy rather than let Marcus win." Tristan shook his head. "Privacy doesn't mean anything if I'm alone behind those walls. You and Eliza and Declan, you're what matters. Everything else is just noise." Eva kissed him, soft and certain. "Take us home." And as they drove through falling snow toward the Brooklyn brownstone that was slowly becoming theirs, not his, not hers, but theirs, Eva finally understood what it meant to stop running. Home wasn't a place you hid. It was the people who saw all of you, the broken parts, the scared parts, the parts you thought were too damaged to love, and stayed anyway. The fairy tale she'd told Eliza that first night in the hospital had been about brave princesses and protective knights. But the real story, the true one, was simpler and harder and more beautiful. It was about two people scared of being hurt who chose to be brave enough to try. It was about trust broken and rebuilt, about lies and truth, and the messy work of forgiveness. It was about choosing love even when love was complicated, especially when it was complicated. The snow kept falling as they drove home, and in the back seat, two children who'd been strangers 4 months ago planned their next adventure with the easy confidence of siblings. And Eva thought, This is what I was running toward all along, even when I thought I was running away." Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop hiding and let yourself be known. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the person who sees you decides you're worth staying for. That was the real ending. Not perfect, not a fairy tale,